going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations. I am pooped. You can tell I'm nasty, dirty. I took the day out of work today to wire wheel every single one of these 62 track pads. So as I mentioned in another video, not only do I have to wire wheel the bottom and the top, but because of the thickness of them, I've got to do the 4 edges as well. So it's super time consuming. This is how I paint them. There may be an easier way. If you know of one, comment below, let me know. But basically I just take 4 8-foot 2x4s, I lay them out. I'll go over the tops of these, I'll spray them with the primer. So I'm more concerned with the top of them than the bottom, because that's typically what you'll see more. So I'll prime the top, let it dry, flip them, prime the bottom, let it dry. I'll come back, I'll paint the bottoms, let that dry. Usually about an hour worth of hardener is all you need. And then I'll come back, I'll flip it one last time, and I'll paint the tops, and then I'll let it sit for the night. So it's Friday. Like I said, I took the day out of work so I could do this today. I'm hoping that tomorrow I can get out here and start bolting these track pads to the chains. And typically while I'm doing that, I'll also put on the rubber pads. So again, as you can see, I've got the 2 bolts to bolt the grouser to the chain, and then the additional 2 holes for the rubber pad bolts. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to throw down some primer, some paint, let these dry for the night, and then we'll come back out tomorrow morning and put these on. I'm hoping that tomorrow I can get this thing moving on its own power for the first time in 12 years. So let's get at it. Alright, well, I got both sides primed, let it dry for about an hour, and just shot the paint on the bottom side of the grouser pads. So I'm trying a new hardener. I usually get the Valspar hardener from the John Deere dealership, and that stuff's amazing. It dries fast, it dries hard, and it dries with a super glossy shine on it. Unfortunately, I don't know what the deal is, but they're not selling it anywhere right now. It's expensive. I mean, it's usually like, I think it's like $74 for a small pint, but it's well worth it. I mean, you can probably get 2 tractors done with that. But anyway, no one has it. I've looked at every dealership. I've gone online to no avail. So I tried the Tractor Supply hardener. I don't know, we'll see how it works. It's just hardener. I would never buy the paint from there. John Deere green 100% all the way, but I figured I'd give the hardener a shot. You know, the John Deere paint on its own dries okay. It is a little soft when it dries, and it does take longer to dry. That's why I use the hardener, but I don't know, we'll see how it goes. So usually, like within like an hour or 2 of spraying, it's dry enough to the touch where I'd at least be able to flip these over. If the paint gets a little messed up, it's okay, because the 2x4 is sitting where the rail is going to go anyway, so it really doesn't matter. We'll just kind of play it by ear. If I can get these flipped tonight and sprayed on the top side of the grouser, that'd be great. But I don't know, I might need to wait till tomorrow, which is fine too. So anyway, next clip we should be putting these on the tractor. Now, one thing I've done in the past when I put these grouser pads on, here, let me just go ahead and grab one here and show you. So basically, the pad gets set on the rail with the chain here, the track, and these are the 2 holes for the bolts that hold it into the rail. So I'd put those hardware on. Excuse me, put that hardware on, and then I'd put the rubber pad on after that. That way there, as I go through each one, they're done. So as you can see, the crawler is still on cribbing, and the track isn't quite touching the ground right now. That's why the other video you could see the track's moving and it was fine. But once I start getting these grouser plates on along with the rubber pad, as soon as it rolls down, it's gonna hit. So we've got 2 options. One, I can put additional cribbing and lift the crawler up higher off the ground to allow me to roll this around, or I can just take it off the cribbing, I basically put on the pads that are easy to get to, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then basically just drive the crawler forward and keep working my way around. Excuse me. So I think for this one, that's what I'm gonna do. Sometimes these tracks, when they're left loose and you have some of these pads on, you can actually grab them and roll the track around. So basically you could do one side first and then flip over to the other side. But because I already have these chains tensioned a little bit, they're a little bit harder to turn. So I'm down with the working smarter, not harder. And I think I'm just going to set it on the ground. We'll put some on, roll it forward, put some more, and just keep moving from there. So anyway, that's it. So let me get the tools and we'll get started. I'll show you how to do one of them, and then I'll probably just do a time-lapse thing. I mean, you don't want to see me put on 62 track pads and 62 rubber pads. We'll be here all day, which I will. So anyway, get some tools and I'll show you how to do 1 or 2 of them, and then we'll go from there. So before we get too far into installing everything, I do want to show you all the parts and stuff. So the hardware that I'm using to keep the grouser pad onto the rail are 5/16 bolts, and then the hardware for the rubber pads are 5/8. So I have all new hardware that I get. These boxes here you can see are all the rubber pads, right? I get them from this company right here, Zimmerman Oliver Cleat Track, and they're in Pennsylvania. The number's on there. The owner of the company, his first name is Landis. They're awesome people to work with. This is just kind of a quick schematic that they send whenever you order the kit, showing you how to install the bolt, the washer, the rubber block, the washer, and then the lock nut. And they do put a little advisory on here that these rubber blocks are not guaranteed to hold up on a working tractor. Recommend primarily for show tractors. So I've used these blocks on every crawler I've done, and I've never had an issue. You know, obviously when they're new, they're nice and smooth, they've got nice rounded corners, they're real pretty looking, and as you use them on concrete and asphalt and dirt, they're going to start to get rips and tears and scuffed up. They may not look this way anymore, but they're still going to be functional. I mean, that's almost, I don't know, 1.5 inches of solid rubber, right? So you can only do so much damage to it. I believe they put this on there just as a kind of a disclaimer, you know, to protect themselves, you know, because, you know, you have your average Joe out there using this stuff and saying, oh, they got cut or scratched up. I mean, it's made to protect the ground you're driving on, like concrete at shows and whatnot. The rubber pad itself is not going to stay nice looking like this unless you just don't ever drive it. So anyway, just keep that in mind. So the rubber pads and all the hardware, let's see, this is the box from Zimmerman. Sorry, I got so much stuff here. They give you all the washers and the lock nuts and all the bolts and the other big washers, all the hardware needed. So you get the rubber pads and the hardware, and they come out to about, I think, like $9 per rubber block with the hardware, right? So, you know, 62 of them, you do the math, it was about 500 bucks. I think it was like 40 bucks to ship everything down because it had to come in 3 heavy boxes, 1 with all the hardware and then 2 with the rubber pads. And then I source all my stuff here locally, a place called Tidewater Fasteners in Norfolk, and I get all my nuts, washers, and all new hardware to install the metal grouser plates onto the rail. So there's no need to get grade 8. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And when you torque these down, the grade 8 will get tightened, but it won't actually stretch the bolt, right? So if you do lots of mechanical things on automobiles, head bolts are a perfect example where when you torque them, the bolts actually stretch and helps keep everything pulled together, keeping the head onto the block, for an example. So you get grade 8 hardware for this stuff. 1, you're going to pay a lot of money, and 2, it's not going to get that stretch, and it's not going to help keep everything tight. I am using coarse threaded bolts. There may be people out there that'll argue and say I should use a fine threaded bolt for these tracks. I've used this is the 4th crawler now. I've never had a pad loosen up on me. So take that for what it's worth. Let's see, everything, the lock washers, the nuts, and the bolts for the grouser pads came to $263. So not too bad. Peace of mind knowing I have all brand new hardware. And as you know, when we took these pads off the tracks, I cut everything. I cut halfway through the bolt and snapped them off. And you know, I just don't trust old hardware. Plus, this stuff looks really nice when it's all put together on the nice painted pads. So anyway, all my new hardware and tools. Let's go ahead and throw some of this stuff on. Alright, I do want to show you this kind of quick. So let's say I go ahead and I put my first grouser pad on. I'm going to put my hardware through. And obviously, I'm going to put the lock washer and the nut on the bottom. And then the problem that I would run across sometimes is, here's an older pad. You can see where I'd actually tried to take a hole saw and I was going to cut through. This is from the other types of pads for like the Lindemann or the MC. There's actually a raised rib in the middle here. This one's got a hole because it's a snow pad, but they actually had a raised hump in the middle. And I was trying to figure out a way to cut to go over that. Because of the fact that it was too much to try to cut into these rubber blocks, I needed a way to keep this pad even, right? Because the hump was in the middle, and when I would tighten down, it would basically fold this rubber pad over on each side. So the solution I had for those was nuts. I'd put 2 nuts in as spacers, put the hardware through, and then I'd put my lock nuts on the bottom, and it raised this rubber pad. You can see I can stick my fingers under there off this track enough so that hump in the middle of those types of pads weren't an issue. So if you have a Lindemann or an MC and you want to use these rubber pads from Zimmerman Oliver Cleat Track, then I recommend you get additional nuts to use as spacers. And they're the same nuts that we'd use for the hardware to hold the grouser pad on. For this application, I don't think I need them because, as you can see, there's a little hump on the back here and then these 2 bolts. So when I tighten them down, it's going to keep everything flat and level. But basically that's what it's going to look like when it's all done. So again, nice having new hardware. Shiny, looks pretty, whatever. And it's easy enough to just take these pads back off if you want to just have metal pads to do actual dirt work. Because again, Zimmerman saying that these won't hold up for heavy work, right? So if you're going to be actually dozing, moving dirt with a blade or pulling logs out of the woods, probably best to take these off and you can reinstall them again. So these are the 1/2-inch holes that were machined into each one of these pads. These rubber pads were designed for the Oliver tractors, and I think the bolt holes in their pads already lined up. But originally these rubber blocks were for loading docks where tractor trailers would bump up to. At least that's what I've been told. So anyway, but they work really good for this. So there you have it. So I'll go ahead and tighten up these bolts on the grouser pad first, and then I'll put the rubber block on, and then I'll move around. It doesn't matter which way you go, and we'll just get them all installed. It takes a long time and it's kind of tedious, but definitely worth it when we're done. Alright, so I'll slide this off real quick so you can see I'm starting from scratch. I've got my first grouser plate with the bolts through, and we'll just pick a spot, put the grouser plate on. The traction bar is to the front, and then basically on each of these bolts there's a lock washer and a nut. So I'll go ahead and slide the lock washer and the nut on, get them hand tight. One side there, and then same thing on the other side, lock washer and the nut. Another good thing about having new hardware is everything works freely, right? So then I'll stick my ratchet in, zipper down. Got one on that side. There we go. Now if you want to go back through, you know, the little zip there works great, but sometimes it's good just to give yourself a little extra sense of security and really kind of torque down. You can sometimes reach through the other side. So there, that first grouser pad's on. Next thing is going to be the rubber block. Like I said, because the lip in the back here with this style pad and these bolts, the rubber block pretty much sits where I want it to. But you know what? I got the extra nuts anyway, so let's go ahead and put them in there. So these would be the 2 extra nuts. Inside these blocks, there's already a metal washer inside there, right? Oop. So we'll go ahead and put our new hardware through. And then we'll stick the hardware around those spacer nuts and through the pad itself. And then they come with washers to go underneath, but it's going on the rubber pad. I don't think it's needed, but I do have the lock nuts. So I'll go ahead and put my first lock nut on here, and then one over here. And then we will shift to the other size sockets, which are the 5/8. And whoop, there we go. And we'll do the same thing. This time we'll go in from the top of the rubber pad here, wrench underneath, if I can get it. We got butterfingers this morning. Let's see, I guess I got to use the open end. And I've got good 2 to 3 threads penetration from the bottom of that lock nut underneath, so I know it is in fact locked in place. Same thing on this side, and that's it. It's solid, not going anywhere. So that's 1 grouser pad and 1 rubber pad. No flex, no roll. Got good spacing. Looks really good. And that's it. That's what we're gonna do for the rest of today. I got 61 to go, not too bad. So I'm gonna finish putting these on this side. I'll install some on the top of the other, and then we'll take the crawler off the cribbing, set it down. I'll video that, we'll move it forward, and then continue putting the rest of these pads on until we're done. So again, do whatever you think is easiest or best for you. Set up some type of assembly line if you want to. What I decided to do here, I kept switching back and forth between the 5/16 and the 5/8 socket. Had I had another ratchet, I could just have one for each function. But so like I've just installed these 5 pads. I've got the hardware in loose, so I'm going to go tighten up these 5, switch, and then install these 5 rubber pads, and then I'll go to the back, we'll drop it down. I'll do the other side, we'll drop it down and move on. But you know, you could put all the metal pads on first if you wanted to, and then go back and do the rubber. Completely up to you. Alright, I'm about done on this side. You can see down here I've got as far down as I can go in the front, and I've made it all the way around to as far down as I can go in the back. So at this point I'm going to shift over to the right hand side and basically do the same thing, and then what we'll do is we'll take it off the cribbing, set it down on the ground, and drive forward to the point where these open ones that haven't had the pads put on yet will be able to access on the top. Pretty easy. Like I said, I've got most of the ones on the left side, and I've got most of the pads and rubber pads on the left side. I've got 22 remaining, so 11 on each side. So what I'm going to do is we'll go ahead and pull the crawler off the cribbing. I'll jack it up, pull the cribbing out, set it down on the ground, start it up, pull it forward onto the tarp here, and finish getting the rest of them on. And it should be good to go. This will be, when I get this off the cribbing and onto the ground, this will be the first time this crawler has moved itself under its own power in about 12 years. Pretty crazy. That's one of the satisfying things about this hobby for sure. Hearing them run for the first time and seeing them move. Awesome, saving old iron. Alright, so I lifted the front, took the jack stand out the front, set the front back down, pulled the jack stand out of the back, so now it's just on the cribbing. So I've lifted pretty much the front of it with the front cross member and pulled out the 6x6s that were up there. So now I'm going to let the front down and go to the back, lift the back, pull up the back supports, and then set her back down. She'll be on the ground. So it is going to want to nosedive a little bit. When I let this down, it's fine, just be wary of it. There we go. Nice. So we'll lift the back and pull the back supports out. Definitely don't ever want to get underneath of it when it's jacked up. So I'm going to reach in and just push those blocks to the inside. And I'll do the same on this side over here. Alright, set her down on the ground. Alright, now that she's on the ground, I'll just pull the 6x6s out so they're out of our way. There you have it, on the ground. It a lot. So rolled it up so that I can start working here, and I'll finish my way back right here to the fender. That's all I got. 22 track pieces, 11 on each side, and we're done. Dang, this piece of ground hasn't seen the light of day since last February. It's been 8 months. Definitely the longest it's ever taken me to do one of these crawlers, but man, she's looking good. I love that deluxe seat. Hell yeah. Well, there she is, folks. Really wasn't too bad. The little Milwaukee zip sure does make quick work of everything. I did have to go back and hand tighten the 5/16 bolts, but yeah, pretty good. Got a majority of it knocked out with the zip. Final torque by hand, and the pads all went on pretty easy with the power ratchet. No issues there. So yeah, finally glad it's done. At least this part anyway. I still have the blade and the hydraulic rams. I got to go through those, and then of course the frame here for the blade. That thing's so heavy, so I gotta wait till I get the 420 back so I can pull this out with the loader, because it's just this frame has got to weigh, I don't know, 600 pounds. It's ridiculous. It's solid. So anyway, yeah, but at least I can move this around. So yeah, I might pull it out here for a minute and get a quick little video of it moving. What, buddy, all set for Halloween? Got a new rider in training? Well, that's a wrap, Jack. I think that's it for today's video. Tracks are on, rubber pads are on. Got a nice ride down the street. Got a good up test on it. Looking pretty good, I think. So, like I said, doing some sharp steering on the asphalt kind of takes a toll on these, you know, to start scraping them up and scratching them. But it's a rubber pad. It's made to protect the driveway and to protect the road, not to look good on the tractor. So, you know, just part of what comes with it. So yeah, I got some finish up things to do with this, some touch-up painting and stuff like that. And then for the most part, this part of the crawler is done. I just got to work on the blade and the hydraulics. Yeah, and then I got a couple shows coming up, and after the shows are done, then we'll pull these rubber pads back off, and we'll start doing some damage with the dozer blade, pushing down some trees and moving some stuff around. But it's easy enough to put these right back on again. Probably takes an hour, you know. So anyway, I appreciate the support from everyone throughout this crawler restoration. I'm not calling it done yet, but to have this tractor running, driving, moving under its own power, and ready to go to a show, I think we pretty much hit the goal. So definitely want a special thanks to my family, my wife, putting up with a lot of my time out here. You know, my kids, time away from doing stuff with them, working on this. You know, obviously the cost and expense of buying all this stuff to bring this tractor back to life. So I definitely appreciate the support from them. So anyway, I hope you all have a great week. Thanks again for watching. Peace.